Good day, everyone. Welcome to this week's Sports Chaplain Character Coach conversation. I'm going to meet with a gentleman from out in California today and talk about soccer or football, depending on where you are in the world, what you want to call it. But we'll talk about unique aspects of soccer culture, football culture, and where are the real avenues for ministry in it, and how we may serve best the coaches and the players of that sport. As we go along, if you will, either type questions that you have in the chat box, or later on in the discussion, we will open some mics and let you ask your question out loud, whichever you prefer. And to kick things off this morning, we're up in the great state of Maine. Lots of us who have been locked in are watching Maine Cabin Masters all the time. Wondering if that's in your neck of the woods, Mark. But if you would, Mark, please pray and start our discussion, sir.
Anytime you want a tour of those cabins, let me know. I know some of them.
Oh, awesome.
All right, let's go to the Lord in prayer. Father, just thank you so much for the time you're granting us to be together and to learn and to be encouraged. And just looking at the variety of people I've seen on this call over the weeks that we've done it, and just shows how awesome your outreach really is, to go worldwide, not just from Maine, not just across the United States, but across the world, to reach everybody as much as we can. Thank you for your power. Thank you for your love. Thank you for being holy, and thank you for being graceful to us. And I just pray that these next few minutes that we have with Ali will help us to learn and to challenge us and to take the step of faith we need to with someone we could today. In Jesus' name.
Amen. Thanks so much, Mark. Appreciate it. Among our guests today are a couple of folks with specific soccer backgrounds, including Marla Butterworth, who played college soccer and has served as a sports chaplain to soccer players in various places, and Reverend Brad Kinney, who is from Soccer Chaplains United, a ministry that serves and trains and mentors soccer chaplains within the professional soccer leagues here in the United States. So we're thrilled to have both of them, and we'll watch for insights from them as well later on. But our featured guest today is Ali Malaekeh out in Southern California. Ali, if you would, please give us a quick introduction about yourself, your family, and a little bit about your soccer background, if you would.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you so much, Roger, for having me. And
Sure.
Just thank you everybody for being here. Background's a little bit colorful. I was born in the Middle East to Iranian parents. I was born in a cultural Muslim family back in 1966. My father worked for the government, for the Shah of Iran. So we got to travel a little bit all around the world growing up. Every 3, 4, 5 years, we used to bounce from country to country to country. Born in Iran, 6 months old, moved to Austria, lived there for 3 years, came to the U.S. for 3 years, went back to Iran for a year, moved to Italy for 5 years, and that's where I think I fell in love with the game of soccer. It just totally took me over. We used to go to the AC Milan games every 2 weeks at the San Siro with either my brother or my father. It was just amazing. That's where I started playing youth soccer. I actually had a trial for AC Milan as a 10-year-old. Was told ungraciously not good enough.
Oh, no.
So ended up playing for a smaller club called Triestina. Moved back to Iran in 78, 79. Revolution happened. Went to Bulgaria. Revolution happened. We moved to Austria. Played in high school soccer in Austria, and eventually came to the U.S. in 1986. Was at Valparaiso University, not playing soccer, but actually transferred to University of Southern Indiana, where I started playing soccer playing career in the U.S., which was phenomenal, playing for my mentor, Tony Colavecchia there. Played my collegiate career there and started coaching right off the bat. And I started coaching about 32 years ago, and I've been in the coaching world for 32 years full-time. Was an assistant head coach at Southern Indiana. Tony got the job at University of Louisville, went to University of Louisville with him, was there for a couple of years, was this interim state director coaching the club, got my USSFA license, managed all my coaching licenses that I needed, and ended up coming to Southern California in 2002. Came to know Jesus in 2003, experienced God's saving grace November 2003, and changed my life totally around. celebrating 13 years, 8 months, 10 days with my beautiful bride. So that's our anniversary today. Every day is an anniversary with my beautiful bride.
That's
I
great.
got two beautiful stepdaughters, Chelsea, who's about to turn 30, and Malia, who's 27. I came on staff about 5 years ago with FCA after coaching as a career for 27 years. Just felt the Lord just moving in my heart and calling me out of coaching full time into serving people of sport. So that's the turbo version of 54 years of life.
Wow. Fantastic. Do you speak Farsi?
I do speak Farsi. I get away with Italian and German as well.
How about that?
So quadlingual.
Amazing. That's fantastic. Hey, just thinking about soccer and the culture that it has, where do you perceive to be some of the best opportunities for ministry as someone serving as a character coach or a sports chaplain? Where are those unique opportunities?
Absolutely. My opportunities that I've seen specifically in Southern California, because that's my, AD days, my post Jesus days,
Sure.
has been predominantly out here. It's such a community. The soccer coaching community is very tight knit, but they're hyper isolated. And living in such a liberal state, everyone keeps their faith really close to themselves. So the opportunities to step into the lives of coaches, whether you're talking at the high school level, at the club level, and for me, what I've experienced at the collegiate level is they're hungry for it. It's like the doors are wide open, but it takes, for lack of better words, the courage to be able to step into that space, because people aren't looking for it. It's just because of the nature of the people in California. And it's what I found super amazing is when you step into that gap, where you can have those real heart-to-heart conversations with coaches, and they're just being themselves. We've had some great conversations, like, again, whether it's at the collegiate level or at the club level, the conversations have been open, and you see the Lord moving. You see the Spirit moving in people's hearts. It's been pretty fantastic to see.
Let me ask you that the first opening, the beginning of those kind of relationships or conversations, do they come at a relational family level, or do they come in over here where we're talking about soccer, or what are the angles to enter those conversations?
Depending on who it is, obviously it's multiple different angles. For me, coming from a history of 27 years of coaching in Southern California since 2002, it's super relational.
Yeah.
But what a lot of people have seen, that they've seen the change God has done in my life over these years, and they look at you and like, there's something there that it's different, and I like, and they open those and they open those doors. So there's that part of equation, and then there's the part of the equation where the fact that, again, being in the game for so long, I can step in as a peer, and we have soccer conversations, and they see that we have something in common. That opens obviously a lot of doors. That drops a lot of guards down, and then having the opportunity to say, hey, I've got something that I can come alongside you to help you achieve your goals. Now, if it comes from a faith perspective, they know exactly what I'm talking about. But there's just so many coaches that, regardless what their reason is, whether it's job security, whether it's the fact that they want to win more, whether they want to look better for the coaches, for the families that are around them, they want somebody else's voice to come in, reinforce what they believe. Because ultimately, when we're looking at the why of a coach, past that initial stage of coaching where it's all about winning, it's all about making an impact in a kid's life. And if I can step in and partner with a coach to help them achieve their goal, it breaks down a lot of walls, and it actually builds up this trust, and these opportunities to have these gospel conversations with coaches. Just as an example, one of the coaches that I've been working with here for the last 2-3 years, not a believing coach, kind of shared the dream of stepping in, being a character coach, talking about leadership, obviously everything biblical based, and being at a California school, at a public university, you when it's mandated, you can't say God, you can't say Jesus. have had this relationship with him for 2 years and been super, super consistent about it, staying in touch with him and all that kind of stuff. He called me literally 4 days ago. He's like, Ali, can you come and talk to my kids? My 13-year-old and 15-year-old are having X, Y, and Z issues. And I know that you have this conversation. You're really relevant, or you can really connect with these kids. Can you come and share that with them? And I'm sitting here, I'm just getting goosebumps thinking about it. I go, what started off 3 years ago as I just want to get involved in ministry at this university, now it's turned into the coach inviting me into his family of not believers and telling me to share wisdom to their kids because they see the value.
Yeah.
So it's been pretty awesome.
That's awesome. In FCA language right now, we're talking about a 3-stage process of be seen, be known, and be heard, right? Those usually don't happen in the same day. It takes time for that process to unfold, and you've experienced it firsthand. That's outstanding.
Absolutely.
Really good. Yeah. And that wasn't just about his players. That was about his own children, right?
Exactly. And that's the part that I literally, when I think about it, sometimes it moves me to tears. Because what my limited perception was of stepping beside him and serving his athletes and him as a coach and his coaching staff 3 years ago when we had no ministry on campus, now it's poured into his family. And just the Lord knows where this is going to go. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to step faithfully into every single open door that the Lord opens up, and you just walk in with confidence, knowing that the work's already been, the Spirit's already moved. He's moving. And I'm just going to keep walking, and whatever it is, it is.
Yeah, that's really good. Really good. Hey, let me ask you another question. What are some aspects of soccer culture in particular that either bring opportunity or bring obstacle to our service as character coaches, sports chaplains?
Absolutely. That's a great question. I'm going to address obstacles first, because I always put myself in the coach's shoes, thinking of an FCA guy coming at me, whether I was at the university level or at the club level, especially coming from a non-believing perspective. Pride is a huge thing. It's like, who are you and what do I need? Well, why do I need you in my life?
Yeah, exactly.
So breaking that barrier is already a challenge. And another obstacle, and I think it's similar in some other sports, not all sports, but some sports, is the fact that we think our sport's the best. We are the sport, right? Football with the round ball is the original football. So you guys don't know what you're talking about. And people won't let you in sometimes because of that arrogance. And sometimes, I hate to say this, but sometimes even from somebody who professes Christ as Savior, they still have that arrogance and that pride in terms of the sport. And another obstacle is just a matter of time. And I don't care whether you're a collegiate coach where, you're obviously worried about your career, about your job, and you're grinding with 30 kids, or you're a club coach and you're coaching 3 teams, where on any given weekend, you may be coaching 14, 15 games, and then you got all the practices and your family. I think those probably are the 3 biggest obstacles. And in terms of opportunities, and I kind of alluded to it, I think a little bit earlier on, it's a volatile job, coaching at the collegiate level, or especially at the elite youth level. Results matter. Being able to come alongside a coach and helping them achieve their goal, because ultimately a coach wants to make sure, from the most primal part of it, is to be able to put a roof over their head. They need job security. They want to make a difference in the kids' lives. They want to look good to the athletic director, and it's a recruiting tool too. If I was a college coach at this point and I was out there recruiting, and I say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, we have all this great stuff at our university, and we invest individually in the leadership and character of your daughter or your son, that brings amazing value. And when you can present those to the coach, they see the value in that. And they see that you're not coming in with selfish motive, that it's not about you, it's about you helping them achieve their goals. That just opens doors, or has been opening doors for me at least.
Yeah, that's really good. I often use the language, our character coach would be there to add value to what you're already doing. We're just trying to add to your great work that you're already accomplishing. Good. Think more tightly a little bit about the club structure and what might be either obstacles or opportunities just in finding volunteers to work alongside coaches in that club environment. What might be both the obstacles and the opportunities that come along with that unique setting?
I think again, obstacles is trying to find people whose schedule matches the coach's schedule and the coach's needs. That's going to be one of the toughest things, especially when you're looking at bringing in a character coach who's not full time with FCA or full time in ministry. Right. Managing that is a challenge. Right now is an opportunity. It's because, especially in California, and I'm sure in other parts of the states and the world as well, we're bound to Zoom meetings right now. We can't be practicing on the field. What a great opportunity. What a great opportunity to provide something of value, because there's only so many plyo exercises you can do on a Zoom. There's only so many yoga sessions you can do and so many skill sessions you can do. But what a great opportunity to be able to bring kids in and start talking about character and leadership. And that, especially with the Zoom environment and the fact that now that the kids aren't going to school and there's a lot more flexibility in terms of having meetings online, it's a great way to get your foot in. Even if you're stepping in just for one session, if what you bring is that valuable, it gets them thirsty for more. And I don't remember where I heard this in I don't want to plagiarize it, so I'm giving credit to whomever said it first. There's that old saying that where you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink. So what do you do to get the horse to drink? You give him salt.
Salty oats.
When you give him salt, he gets thirsty, and the horse drinks himself. So all I'm called is to be salty.
Yeah.
So if I come in, even if it's a one-time opportunity to speak at this club or with this team or at that university, and I go in covered in prayer, and I actually am salty, and I am being salty, and I am being the light, they're going to get thirsty. They'll want more. Yeah. Whether it's the coaches who want more or the athlete who's going to send you a text later on and says, hey, can we talk about this? I got a question about this. It's like, let's go. Exactly. Let's go. I've got the living water. Let's have a conversation.
Really good. Really good. Yeah, it's funny. Here recently, about 3 weeks ago, I started doing a weekly meeting with the men's basketball team at our university. And we're using the book Legacy by James Kerr. It's about New Zealand rugby, but it's a leadership development book. Great book, but the players are reading it. We're doing a half-hour discussion once a week, and half an hour keeps it brief, keeps them all tightly engaged, and doesn't drone on. And they're having a blast with it, and they're all well engaged and figuring out how to do things by Zoom, by asking direct questions and things like that. And it's working. And exactly like you said, they can only do so many of these other things, but if we figure out a way to deliver the content and engage them in a way that's salty, man, that builds the relationship for whatever comes later on. Yeah, other opportunities will come later. Good.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, how much different is that at the collegiate level? Obviously, there's the compulsion to win, the need to win, but do you see opportunities changing, or are there greater obstacles presently at the collegiate level?
I think the need to win is almost like the front shell, because ultimately is when you get rid of that need to win part, it's understanding of significance, and it's understanding of identity of who they are and why they're doing what they're doing. Yeah. If it's only when they see that winning itself is not the end, that whether you win or lose, that's just part of the process. When we come alongside them and kind of draw this bigger picture of, okay, let's look long term. Let's look past your 4 years. What is it that you want to dream in your life? What are your most passions based on your skill sets, based on whatever your dream is? What do you want to do? Do you want to train dolphins? Do you want to work in a hotel in Thailand? Do you want to whatever it is? What are your passions? Because I find often with athletes, especially at the collegiate level, they're either they're living the life their parents dreamed of them to live, in terms of being college athletes and pursuing it that way, or they achieve their dream of playing collegiate athletics and no one's walked beside them to take them to that next step of formulating another dream for their life, to clarifying that fog and saying, what is it that I want to accomplish? Not only what is it am I going to accomplish, is why do I want that? Is my why that strong to carry me through the tough times, right? And the next component is who do I have to be? And that who part is the part that changes everything. Because if this is what I want to accomplish and this is why I want to accomplish it, who I need to be day in, day out, that opens up such amazing gospel conversations. Mm-hmm. Because if I choose to be a man of God, if I choose to be submitted to the Lord, if I choose to live my life this way, everything else falls in place. And when I'm able to have those conversations with the athletes, we usually have, depending on what thing is, whether I'm speaking to the women's soccer team or to the whole freshman class at Cal State Fullerton, it leads to deeper conversations. People want to say, yeah, let's meet one-on-one because we want to talk about this. That now, I never even thought about past my junior year. You're telling me to think about when I'm 30, 40, 50. Mm-hmm. Kind of like that book in the Legacy says, be a great ancestor. Giving him that thought process of how am I going to be remembered allows him to actually slow down and start looking at a much deeper level and look at the important things in lives. And it's opened some unbelievable conversations. But it's about entering into that zone of trust where you can have those conversations with them. Because otherwise it's that facade of the bravado of an athlete. I got to win. And you got to get past that first.
Yeah, and that cracks open the big issue of identity that is so central to the elite sporting people. Is they're so consumed by their life in sport that it winds up identifying them almost entirely. And it's folks like us who say, there's more to you than just that. Who you are is bigger than that. And they don't even know. And you start at using language like, you know what, winning's always the goal of the game, but it's never the purpose. That opens up new horizons, and they go, what are you talking about? And suddenly we're talking on a deeper level than just, did you score enough to win yesterday? Yeah, there's a whole lot more. That's brilliant. Good.
Absolutely.
Yeah, everybody get ready to rack your questions here. You can either, again, send them in by the chat box, or you can ask them out loud here in a minute. But get them ready. I only have one or two more for Ali. How would you say are some ways to approach a soccer coach, especially the head coach? How would you make that first approach? Coach, I think I see someone who could serve your team, whether it's me or somebody else, to add value to your program. How would you make those initial overtures to the coach to be able to talk about someone serving his or her team as a character coach?
Absolutely. I mean, first and foremost, I think the timing part is critical. Stepping into the office during preseason or in the middle of the season and saying that is you're just going to get that door slammed in your shut. You may never open again. And affecting it, because ultimately, as soon as the season's over, within the next week to 10 days, maximum 2 weeks, coach is already thinking next year. Entering that conversation during that time, I think is probably the wisest time to do it. Even 2 months before the season starts is too late, because the program's already set. The coaches already know mapped out. Everything. They already know what they want to do. Yep. So that's one part of it. The second part of it is if you don't know the coach, is if there's any way through the network of friends, FCA, ministry, whatever it is to get a triangular connection into that coach rather than it being a cold call. Because once I can come up to a coach and say, hey, Johnny, I got this really good friend of mine you need to meet. Roger is a stud. He's going to help your team become what it needs to be, blah, blah, blah. Can you give him 10 minutes of your time? That again, drops a lot of the guards of the coaches down, especially at the collegiate level, where you can actually step in and have conversation, because you share something mutual. You share respect for a friend that you can use as a bridge for that conversation. And if it is a cold call, if it's one of those cold calls where you don't know the coach or whatnot, I think it's so important to express what the problem is before you give them the solution. When they're faced with the problem that we're facing a generation of lost kids who are searching for meaning, and they're looking for it in all different places, and in the search they're actually causing more damage to themselves and the community they live in than if somebody would walk alongside them and help them. When they see the problem and they see that you have the solution for it, they're a lot more likely to open the door.
Really good.
If I just give a solution and the coach doesn't know that there's a problem, it's like, yeah, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much. Thanks for your business card. I'll call you back whenever, if we ever need something. So it's always identifying the problem, sharing the problem, and giving him the solution, and enough of the solution for them to get thirsty for more, without giving them all the answers. Say, hey, you don't have to do anything. I'll take this off your shoulder whenever it fits in your schedule, in whatever manner you want. I can come alongside you. And I've tried it in all three different versions, and I'm so thankful that it's been pretty fruitful. Now it's not foolproof guaranteed, because some coaches just flat out don't want it. I know there's a coach that at a major university here whose team competes for a national championship all the time. Believing coach flat out doesn't want anybody close to his team.
Wow.
And it's somebody who's even associated with our ministry, but says, no, I'm good. Thank you very much. And you respect it.
Uh-huh.
If that's what the coach wants, say, hey, if you ever need something, I'm always here for you. We're good. Love you. And you just move on and see where the next open door is.
Yep. Good. Yep. I think, as you said, timing is really important, and off season is the best time for sure. And earlier in the off season, even better. That's smart. And building those relational connections, that is the big deal. Rather than it being cold, if it's bringing somebody with me. I have one of those meetings tomorrow with a guy who's, I think, going to be able to serve an area high school basketball team. And the head coach and he know each other, but he doesn't know him in this role. And I'm going to find out, can he fit this role and make the connection? Looking forward to it. Good. Now, do you have questions you would ask Ali? Anybody listening in? Love to hear your questions or your comment, and have Ali follow up on that comment. Brad Kinney, may I ask you any direct thoughts you have that you'd like to insert?
Yeah, no, I've appreciated, Ali, just hearing from you and learning your situation, and especially as we try to develop chaplains at all levels. Sometimes we find that the collegiate setting and the club setting is difficult, and you've touched on a number of things that we've encountered as we try and place the chaplains, especially the pride issue, and coaches just being protective of the team. You know, it's their team, it's their locker room. And so I think one of the pieces of language that we've learned to use when we make a placement for a chaplain in soccer, whatever level it is we tell the coach, or we tell maybe the GM or the executives, we say, you set out the cones, you set out the boundary lines, you tell us where to be, where not to be. Sometimes we'll develop more formal things like a document of understanding or a memorandum of understanding. But we really try to empower those coaches. So, Ali, I have appreciated what you've shared today. I think one of the questions I've got that I'd love to hear, maybe from Ali yourself, maybe from other FCA people, is, you know, there are other entities that promote character. And I'm thinking specifically of the Positive Coaching Alliance. So I wonder if you guys would share about some of the, I don't know if you see them as a competitor, or, you know, because the Positive Coaching Alliance doesn't have the gospel of Christ at the center of what they want to do. And it's a noble thing that they want to have coaches teach character or have athletes grow in character. But, you know, if Jesus isn't at the center of it, it can only go so far. So maybe Ali or maybe other FCA folks, if you guys would share with me a little bit what you see or how you see PCA, does that get in the way sometimes when FCA is offering something? Is it an ally to come alongside? I'd love to hear some of your thoughts on that.
That's a great question, Brad. For me, in my experience in Southern California, I've never we've never even come across an issue like that. The biggest area that we've like biggest struggle that sometimes comes up with some coaches is when we're talking about character development. They all say, "Oh, I already have a sports psychologist," and it's just like different. we're not talking sports psychology here. We're talking about character development. That's been my only I guess going head to head against another organization. So that's my experience with that.
Anybody else have direct connection, good or bad, related to a positive coaching group? Okay, we have one question come in by chat. I'd like to ask you now, Ali. Luis is the chaplain for a college soccer program with a very experienced and very successful coach across 30 years. Could you give him some tips on how he can help the coach understand that Luis can add value to his team? He considers himself a believer, but he believes he's rather universalist in his beliefs. He's probably not a Jesus-only guy. What sort of thoughts could you lend to Luis?
Absolutely. I think, Luis, great question, first of all. I think there's two different news. There's the coach that is believing in essence a false gospel, where he's a little bit universalist. And then there's the issues of the team. Having conversation with the coach and asking questions about where he finds the biggest struggles on his team, whether it's on an individual basis or on a team basis. When he says, well, I'm struggling with this stuff on my team. My kids are disrespectful. They don't work hard. They don't do this. They don't do this. They don't do that. When he has the problem, he obviously doesn't have the answer for it, because otherwise it wouldn't be a problem. If he expresses the problem and he can say, well, have you thought of this? Can I come alongside you and give you this? I've seen in my history or working with this program that this has been super, super successful. And that's when you actually step it in and equipping them to do the work, to actually start the X's and O's of character development or leadership development. That's super, super helpful. And in terms of him and his faith, my experience, especially with people who kind of have that concept of, I believe all ways are equal. What I found super successful is, again, asking questions and leading them into dead ends where their logic defeats itself. That's apologetics and all that kind of stuff. And we can sit here and talk about hours on end on how to do that. But when you keep asking questions like, well, if you say this and this, how do those two work together? Or how did you come up with that thought process? How do you know that's true? Without necessarily imposing the gospel as truth, is absolutely start shattering the foundation of what they believe is true. And when their foundation is rocked and they're sitting there going, oh, okay, I'm actually built my house on sand. I need a solid foundation. You say, well, let me tell you. And then they ask you, it's like, well, how do you stay solid? And then you get to share the gospel.
Very good. Luis, any follow-up from that? No. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Awesome.
Okay. Hey, I have another question that came in by the chat. Shannon says he loves the idea of adding salt to the oats to help people realize their thirst. When you have a one-time opportunity to speak to athletes and coaches, do you have a particular go-to topic or theme that you like to encourage to draw out more thirst?
Great question. And I think that's going to depend on who I'm speaking to and who's asking me to speak. It's when I was asked to speak to the whole Cal State Fullerton athletic department incoming freshman class, actually everybody, the welcome back event, it was a different topic than when a coach specifically asks me to come and speak and says, Ali, I've got an issue with X, Y, and Z. Can you help me out? A curriculum or program or whatever you want to call it that I found super helpful is the Habitudes program from Tim Elmore and Growing Leaders. Everything's biblically based, Christ-centered. They've got the value version of it and the faith version of it. And depending on what university you're speaking to, you can use whatever it is. Yep. And he says, well, I've got a problem with kids not knowing that integrity is important. It's the curriculum's already there for you. in terms of some of the stories that you can share and the illustrations you can share that's super helpful. But asking the coach what the coach's biggest needs is, or what their biggest struggle is, or what the team's biggest need is, I think is the first question to ask, because they've got the heartbeat of the team better than anything else, anybody else. That's one part of it. And the second part of it is being on your knees and praying and saying, Holy Spirit, what is it that you need me to share in here? Because you can share what the coach wants, and if the Spirit is adding something to it, you incorporate that into that message. Again, whether it's value-based or faith-based, you can bring those two together and share exactly what they want or need.
Yep, you bet. If they express something, it's kind of like scratching their itch. If you can figure out where they're itching, bang, go straight at it. That's really good. The name of that program, that curriculum, is called Habitudes, Habitudes, by Tim Elmore. Good stuff. A lot of our FCA colleagues are using that, especially on college campuses. They're finding that to be really effective.
Something else, if I could add to that,
please do,
Roger, is some of the, and especially with John Gordon's connection with Clemson and all the professional teams, a lot of his material, his books, open doors. Mm-hmm. Is because if Dabo does it and he's winning 3 national championships, hey, if I do it, I'm going to win the 3 national championships. If that's going to open the door, that's going to open the door. Whether we're talking about the Power Positive Leadership, the Carpenter Training Camp, whatever it is, he's got the books are awesome, but the material are all Christ-centered, mm-hmm. And it's presented in a way where it's palatable, it's easy, it's not super chewy. And the name recognition and the pedestal that you know, the influence that John has right now in the world of athletics, it'd be foolish not to hold on to that occasionally and walk in the doors.
Good. Brad Kinney, I know you have another question, sir.
Yeah, Ali, could you speak to for a little bit about how political the soccer cultural environment is? Because I think that sometimes I've noticed in the networking, you mentioned getting an introduction to a coach, but sometimes I think we don't realize how politicized the U.S. soccer system is, just kind of across all levels. Can you share some other tips or dive a little deeper into, you know, just understanding those coach relationships as far as getting introductions and getting you know, just navigating those sort of turbulent waters?
Absolutely. As political as it is, just in the natural part of life, you throw faith into that, it turns into a whole different level of politics and issues that come up with it. What I found is there's a very small, tight-knit community of believing coaches that are truthfully out there watching each other's back and have the ultimate goal of making disciples who make disciples. They have a kingdom agenda on their mind as they coach. Is as you identify who those coaches are, whether it's in your personal network or in the greater network in U.S. soccer, when we can partner together and go into this battle together and help each other do the kingdom work, it's going to be a lot more effective. And being super cognizant of who you're talking to when that introduction's made. I had a conversation. I was used to the head coach at UCI. Yossi's an awesome guy. He's Jewish. I can't go in first meeting just start throwing Pierre Jean-Pierre elbows at him with the gospel. It's building those relationships and showing them, leading with love. Like, hey, I'm here for you. I'm just here for you. When they realize that we're coming from a heart perspective, not a job perspective, not an FCA or any other acronym perspective, other than we're here to serve, I think, at least in my experience, I've seen a lot of those political walls drop. And when that relationship is consistent, it's more than just a check-in once a month. They see how much you care. And when they see how much you care, those walls break, those politics break. Across faith, across universities sometimes, even if they're rivals, and you're serving two universities at the same time in the same conference at their rivals, when they see that, they're like, oh yeah, come on in, come on in, come on in. But you're right, the politics of youth soccer, collegiate soccer in general is a gnarly battleground to walk into.
Is there any time, like a collection of those coaches, especially the coaches of faith, is there any time they actually get together as a group, or does that never happen?
Their U.S. Soccer has a faith-based group, I think, but it's open to all faiths. I think it's predominantly predominantly Christian, but I think it's open to all faiths. They do have the yearly convention. Next year is going to be in Anaheim, God willing, if COVID allows us to get into it. We're having a breakfast there. At that same convention, there's another group that meets. I'm not aware of a forum where people stay connected on a regular basis, other than a once a year thing, or just through personal relationships and stuff like that.
Gotcha. In that event, does it comprise like the club world and the collegiate world and the high school coaching world? All those folks show up at the same thing?
Yes, at the U.S. Soccer Convention, it's arguably the biggest coaching convention in any sport. From at least that's what we were told a couple of years back.
Wow.
Thousands of coaches from around the world that come to it. Brad, I think you had something to say.
Yeah, no, I was going to mention the faith-based coaches group that's part of the United Soccer Coaches. I think that's a great place to build relationships.
Bingo. That's the place to be.
A lot of the board members are Christian, or a lot of the council members are Christian, and are coaches primarily at Christian collegiate level. But I do know that there are some club coaches on that council as well. They do kind of have sort of that ecumenical feel, or interfaith feel, I should say, where they say, if you're a Muslim coach or if you're a Jewish coach, and they try and offer support. But I know the head of that board, and most of the members are predominantly Christian. They've got a monthly email list, and I've been trying to build relationships with that group just as a way of coming alongside the coaches to say, hey, how can we support and serve you? And sometimes it's helpful to, if you're coaching in any level, you're going to have families and athletes of different faiths. And I've learned that sometimes when you acknowledge or understand those different faiths, it gives you an open door to share the love of Jesus and the gospel with people. So if you're at that kind of a level, or if you're serving a coach who's Christian, I encourage you to have them join that faith-based coaches group. It's not maybe ideal, but out of that, I think they're forming new relationships in smaller groups, and they're trying to develop that support for one another.
That's great, Brad, because I was actually on the phone with Mike and a couple other coaches about the convention, and that's one of the things we're talking about at the next convention at a roundtable we're having. I think it's going to be myself, Yossi from UCI. I think we're trying to look for a Muslim coach and a Buddhist / and a Hindu coach, and showing that we have to respect is key in this thing. If a Jewish guy can't compete on this weekend because he's got to go to temple, I've got to respect that. The same way the Muslim coach has got to respect the fact that I'm not going to compete on Good Friday if that's my conviction. And to be able to build that the respect amongst each other, that let's do this together. Yeah. Because ultimately, when we have that respect, Christ is going to be glorified anyway.
Yeah. It's kind of the Lord's way. Yeah.
You see the impact in that too, because I've seen, especially families of other foreign ethnicities, they want the Christian coach because the Christian coach will respect or bring the values that are very similar. And so I've seen that happen, especially at the club level, the youth level. I've seen that when parents know that a Christian coach can have that compassion, that understanding, it opens amazing doors for that to continue. And I think as we come alongside those coaches too, to encourage them, because it's difficult if your star player is Muslim and is fasting during Ramadan, or his family is very devout, like, you have some decisions to make. But if you're assuring that family that, hey, your faith is not going to get in the way of your son regaining his starting position, or we're, how can we make allowances, how can we work with you, those kinds of things go deep within the community, and just show Jesus's love.
It's good.
Good. Ali, can I ask you to think about your experience as a player, especially when you're playing, let's say, one of those clubs or collegiate soccer? When might you, looking back, think, I could have really used a chaplain's, character coach's service in this moment or in this situation? What might have been those moments or situations that could have been really helpful?
I don't think we got enough time for me to go over every single situation.
Pick one or two.
All right. I think when you start with a relationship with the program, whether it's at the collegiate level or at the club level, being able to have somebody on your side to help build that foundation of what you believe is what you want to build your program on, in terms of character. I think that is vital. I think a lot of people have a general understanding of what they think is right or what they want to do, but they have no idea how to do it. They struggle to do it in their own life, forget implementing it in the life of all their players. So having someone in that time, I think would have been awesome for me, whether, again, as at the collegiate level or at the club level. And for me, is as a matter of accountability. I know I serve as when I walk side by side with one of my friends who coaches at a Christian university, or sometimes even when I coach, is in the heat of battle. There's an ugliness that comes out of me sometimes, whether it's like nipping at the referee, and it's not a matter of using foul language or not, but it's a heart issue, isn't it? It's competition. I got to win this game. I got to make sure the kids know that that what they're doing is worthwhile. That we got to win to prove it to them. And I got paying parents on the other side of the field, or the AD that's looking at me. There's all those pressures. Have a way of getting ugliness out of people. And I know, sitting on the sideline with my brother in Christ, when he starts going, all I got to do is call his name. He's like, yeah, you got me. I need that in my life. So knowing if a big game's coming up, or if we're going through a stretch of the season where it's going to get hairy or dicey, is having accountability, not only on the field, on the sidelines, but maybe even before the game, or the day before, or the day after, and just being able to unpack what's going on in my mind and the struggles that I'm having, and how the character coach can come beside me, whether it's from the chaplaincy perspective or the character coach perspective, how they can help me be accountable to who I want to be, who my dream is, if I'm not a believing coach, and who God's called me to be if I'm a believing coach.
Great. Luis sent another great question here. This is insightful. He says, I live in a soccer club desert, a city of 300,000, but the suburbs take all the state titles and they take the best players for the clubs. He says, and as an FCA rep in an urban area, I see a need for high-level opportunities for those kids. Do you recommend investing time on developing opportunities like with them, even if it's just for a small group of kids? He's considering developing a grassroots soccer kind of program with church volunteers for younger kids. Do you see merit in that?
Absolutely. Well, one of the conversations that I've often had with some people, even when I was living in Kentucky and in Southern California, we're always talking about what's the best way to start this, and the grassroots is the ideal way. the flesh says, hey, let's get that U14, U16, U18 team, all Christian kids, win a state championship, carry the flag, and we're going to do it. But that's not going to be sustainable, because as soon as they graduate out, you got a void behind you. But if you start with the grassroots level, with 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds, and you're investing your time in them, both from the soccer perspective and both from and the faith and value and character perspective, those families and those kids are going to be, quote unquote, the best advertisement you have, because they see the fruit of it. They're going to be in your community for the foreseeable future. They're going to tell their neighbor, they're going to tell the next person in school. And once you start at that grassroots level and continue to feed from the bottom level up, that foundation is going to get more and more solid. So I'm not saying forget about the older ones, but definitely invest in the grassroots and the youngest age group, where you can build a solid foundation of what you believe the Lord's put on your heart.
Yeah, from a sports chaplaincy character coaching level, one of the pages from a book of our friends in Atletas de Cristos in Brazil, what they would do is they would attach a character coach, a chaplain, to that U8 team or whatever, that very young team. And that character coach or sports chaplain would travel with them throughout their development. So he's still with them at U10 and 11, 12. They're the same guy all the way through there. And so by the time they're playing on the elite level, they're still in connection with the same person, as opposed to finding a different chaplain at every step along the way. They had the person grow right along with the others, and that relationship was so central. I thought that was a brilliant strategy. And so you find a new one, and he starts with this group, and they continue to grow. But again, because I think we all know, this is intensely relational ministry, way more than it is strategic or other things. The better we do relationships, the better, the stronger we are. Good. Gracias, Luis. Marla, are you able to contribute? I'd love to ask you a question similarly that I asked to Ali about where were those moments as a player or as a character coach, where were those crucial moments when it would have been great to have a team chaplain with you?
Sure, yeah, that's probably all I have to contribute. Is as a player, him and Brad are nailing it. Thank you guys so much. Yeah, as a player, just in club, I was okay. It's just, it was a lot. I almost didn't get a chance to play club because I come from a very strong Christian family where my dad's a minister. And the club coach actually pursued my parents and said, hey, she's good enough that she could play in college, but you've got to let her go and play on Sundays. Your kid's not going to go off the deep end for missing church a few times, and so I don't know. I feel like perhaps a character coach could have spoken into that situation, even for my parents, quite frankly. Yeah, that could have been really helpful at a younger age. But in terms of playing in college, I honestly never understood my sphere of influence as a collegiate athlete until after I was done. It wasn't until I was coaching high school and stuff like that I started understanding that sphere of influence. So just simply somebody coming along me as a person of faith and saying, hey, you've got a platform. What is God putting in your heart to do? Not for me to go help them do their ministry, but for them to teach me at that point how to ask God questions, shut up and listen, and be faithful to the platform He'd given me. Also in college, I face planted plenty in my Christian walk as well. Started it. I guess what could have been valuable at that point in time could have been somebody helping point out the idolatry of soccer, the idolatry of relationships, all rooted in an insatiable need for affirmation, approval, affection, stuff like that. That was what it was for me. And I had some FCA staff around me, but they didn't see me but like once a semester, once a year. So I don't think they really had a pulse on what was going on personally. But just simply, if somebody would have walked alongside me a little more closely in that regard, even potentially calling out things in my life, that would have been awesome.
I'm hearing your experience, like Ali's, like probably Brad's, like a lot of folks in soccer. The higher level at which you play, it becomes more and more consuming of your life in total. Is that true? you all would say that's true?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Probably true of sport in general, but that one in particular, probably it can become totally consuming of your entire life.
Roger, I think Marla said something super powerful right there.
Please.
And correct me if I missay this. It's the depth of relationship that was lacking in Marla's life with the FCA member. And I think a lot of times we walk in. I'll just talk about myself. I walk in. I'm like, oh, 19 sports. I want to hit all 19 sports. You're just an inch deep, and you're building no relationship with the kids. But if you're in with one team, and if God gives you favor with one team, and you can sit at their practices and go have chicken wings with them and watch a soccer game at Buffalo Wild Wings, and just do life with them, those tough conversations and being able to call somebody out on their behaviors is going to be a lot more. Those opportunities are going to be there more often because you're doing life with them.
Yeah.
It's just not, hey, I just did my weekly chapel. See you later in 2 weeks. I'll be back in 2 weeks. Go Jesus.
Well said.
Yeah. Yeah. If you don't mind, I'll take 2 seconds and
Please
confirm. You nailed it. And I'll say this, this particular staff person is outstanding. I actually just did a video to congratulate them on how many years they've been on staff, and the impact they've made on my life is like absurd. Now, they were doing the best they could because they had an area that had, I don't know how many schools, middle schools, high schools, and colleges. And so what they were doing in that time was incredibly faithful. But you're actually convincing me more and more of the value of using a volunteer character coach for the sake of being able to have that intentionality that you're speaking towards.
Really good. I'm training a guy this week who's probably a 20-something African-American young dude who's on a staff of a local church, and I'm bringing him in with me to college football. And if he does well, I'm going to let him into college basketball also, because I look like a 64-year-old white dude. He's not. And he's going to have openings and connections and double our effort immediately. Can't wait to see what happens with this guy. And we'll get to walk with each other a long way. And pretty soon they may say, we like that guy better than you. Why don't you go away? I kind of hope that happens, but we'll see one of these days. But that's spot on, Marla. We can multiply our effort really, really well by engaging more and more volunteers. Okay, any other questions y'all have for Ali? Otherwise, we're going to turn for home here in a moment. Any summary thoughts you'd like to make Ali, about opportunities for effective ministry in the soccer world?
I don't know necessarily if it's necessarily just the soccer world, period, but coming from an athletic background, it's I think in my life, one thing I always have to watch out for is pride and self-sufficiency, and thinking that I can get through there. I can do that. And when I do that, it's inevitable with a door slammed shut in my face.
Wow.
It is making sure that I'm on my knees, specifically praying, Lord, what is it that you want me to do today? And if it's to sit here and just watch these kids practice, praise God. And just being as spirit dependent as I can be, and bold and courageous to step into every single opening, knowing it's good. I'm all right. It's not about me. It's not about my ego. It's not about me getting hurt if the door gets slammed in my shut my face. It's about people learning about the truth and who Jesus is and experiencing saving grace. If that's the forefront of my thought every day, I can walk forward with courage. Nothing can ruin me, because my hope is in the Lord. My strength is the Lord. He's the one who's carrying me through this. I'm getting excited. Sorry about that, but I have to depend on that. And again, as I said, as an athlete, there's a huge danger for me as an athlete, 54 years old, former athlete, and as a current coach, it's really easy to lose sight of that and either become complacent or self-sufficient.
Yeah.
So if we can live through that strength, all is good.
Yep. That's really good. I have a dear friend who often quotes Corrie ten Boom, where she said, my insufficiency and the Lord's all sufficiency need to meet.
Amen.
Right there together. Luis, are you at the place where you could open your mic and pray to wrap things up today? You could pray in English or in Spanish, whichever you prefer. Let's open your mic one moment. Are you driving? But can you pray anyway? You don't have to close your eyes. Will that work? Hang on, I'm trying to unmute you. Momentito, okay. Would you be willing? Gracias.
Gracias, Señor, por este tiempo juntos. Gracias por Ali. Bendícelo y llénalo de tu espíritu en todo lo que está haciendo. Gracias que podemos servirte a ti en Des Moines, en California, en todos los estados, en diferentes ciudades. Te pedimos que abras las puertas para que tu nombre sea famoso aquí y en los confines de la tierra, Padre. Gracias. Guíanos y bendícenos en el nombre de Jesús. Amén.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone. Ali, thank you so much. Very insightful thoughts and great stuff today. Thanks, Brad Kinney, for your contributions, and Marla and everybody else for your excellent questions. Thanks to our friends in the U.S. and abroad, especially our friends in the Philippines. Great to see you all by camera. We will do this again in 2 weeks from today. We will have Brandy Cantrell from FCA down at Texas Tech University. She's going to talk in particular about intercessory prayer. How do we pray for the people we're serving? In what particular ways can we do this effectively and in the greatest possible effect? Thanks so much, everyone. Bless you, and we'll talk again soon. I will put this recording up in just a few minutes. Bless you.
Thank you, Roger.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
God bless you. Thank you, Brother Ali.